What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Modern Mortgage Show with Rocco, where I interview mortgage professionals that share their stories and valuable information about the industry. I'm your host, Rocco, and I'm super excited to introduce my guest for today's show. His name is David Kosmecki, and he's a branch manager at Sierra Pacific Mortgage Company out of Ramsey, Minnesota. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rocco.
Thank you for being here. So, David, let's start off. Can you please give us a brief introduction of who you are?
Sure. I got in the industry in 1977. It's been 41 years.
Wow.
I started on the real estate side first. Sold real estate, became an owner partner in one of the a large real estate franchise, the largest office in a 4-state region. Partnerships are tough. I left there. I built houses for 6 years. And my wife dragged me into the mortgage industry in '93, and I've been here since. Owned my own company for a while, took it from a broker shop to a small correspondent lender. When the market got tough, we changed and been at a couple different companies, primarily in production and management roles. And here I am at Sierra Pacific in a northern suburb of the Twin Cities.
So you said you've been in the industry since '77?
Yeah, I started on a real estate sales side back then.
And then
mortgages
the
specifically in '93. Yeah.
Okay. So how'd you get your start on the real estate side in '77?
Yeah, when you're a child, usually they don't say is it a boy or girl? No, it's a realtor. Usually real estate is a second career, and it was for me. I was transferred here to the Twin Cities with Target stores. I came out of the stores organization and went into the buying office, and high stress job. You're always wrong, and I left. I quit actually. And was looking for a new career and decided to, at that point, try real estate. And here I am.
Awesome. So what made you want to make the switch over to the mortgage side from the real estate side?
Well, real estate was a lot different when I left back then. It wasn't internet based. And so I left. It was kind of a funny analogy, but I left because I got tired of sticky suckers in my back seat and licked up rear windows. But I had a team back then of a licensed and unlicensed assistant, and I was working a lot of foreclosed properties at the time. And I was typically booked 2 weeks out with appointments, literally every day and every night. And had an out-of-town buyer call me and say, I want to go look at properties. I hear you have all the deals. And I said, well, I'm not sure if that's the case, but sure. My next appointment is whatever date it was. And it was like 2 weeks out. And he said, well, I heard that these are all vacant. And I found myself not saying no at the time. And I was showing vacant properties from 10 o'clock until 4 in the morning, and intensity of the business at that time, it really just burned me out, to be honest with you. I was there for doing real estate for 17 years, and I got burnt out and decided I'm going to hang up my spurs and quit. And I wound down my business over a 3-month period and left. And that's what made me leave.
Okay. So since '93, have you always been at Sierra Pacific Mortgage?
No, I haven't. We started our own shop. Well, first I went to a small broker shop where my wife was. And like I said, she got me in the business.
Yeah.
And we found that they really didn't know how to close business. And back then it was pretty much still pre-internet. And so Selectric typewriters, and they had files stacked up around the processing room that they haven't opened yet. And we decided we could do this a lot better. So we started our own company. Entrance in the industry was pretty easy at the time, and started our own shop, and grew it from there. And that's how I got into business, really. So, and they ran it. The first broker shop ran it kind of like a siding company, where they set up appointments. I'd go in their home and write applications, and so it's kind of different, but that's kind of how they operated. And because it wasn't internet based or anything, it was all face to face stuff. So
Yeah. Awesome. So what would you say is the most satisfying, or what's the most rewarding thing about your job as a loan officer? What makes it all worth it to you?
well, a lot of people, some people have asked me, are you thinking of retiring? And no, I'm not. I'm afraid of being that guy that watches the Weather Channel all day and doesn't know what the weather is. Or I'm going to binge on NCIS or something. And I really get enjoyment out of helping people, whether it's people that get into a difficult situation, or people that are trying to improve the situation, or whether it's even first generation Americans getting their first home. I find all of that extremely satisfying and very rewarding. And money isn't bad, but that's a byproduct of what I enjoy doing. So
Definitely. Like I said, or like I was thinking, it's always good to have that purpose when you wake up. Like there's no need to retire if you love what you're doing, you love helping people,
yeah.
and you really get that fulfillment from it.
Well, and I've learned over time that I can have helpers, and so they do all the heavy lifting. So I get to do the fun part. Talking with agents, talking with referral sources, talking with buyers, and then I have other people do all the button clicking and all of the other stuff. Not that I don't button click, but I look at my time as, what can I do to be most effective with my time? And is that really running a what if scenario, or is it really talking to the next client or the next agent?
Mm-hmm.
And so I find myself doing more of the hunting and gathering, and less of the other. And so I have helpers. I have 4 different helpers that work with me, and I kind of make it rain, and they make everything else happen behind the scenes. So
it sounds like you have a really good process in place.
yeah.
Awesome. So shifting gears here. So back in 93, or when you started your shop,
Mhm.
what was your biggest struggle or obstacle you faced early on?
Well, initially, knowing what to do. We literally, when we made that decision, we hired our first employee, and we spent a week at a business library trying to read trade journals to learn more about the industry, because I really didn't know about it. And so it wasn't until we were open for a month before we signed up with our first wholesaler, and grew the company to like about 26 people at its peak.
Wow. Yeah. So I was interviewing Trevor 2 days ago, and he was a personal trainer. And then when he got his start in the industry, he was reading Mortgage for Dummies. He was reading a bunch of books.
Sure. Well, that's there wasn't any training, so to speak. And today you got to take a test, and the test is a big barrier. I have a lot of people that I'm working with that are coming out of maybe they were a loan officer before, or English is a second language, and they working at a bank, and they left the bank, so they're not in that 90-day window, and they just have a difficult time passing the test, and that becomes a big barrier. But even when you pass the test, it doesn't tell you how to sell real estate. I mean, not sell real estate, do mortgages. For that matter, the real estate test doesn't teach you how to sell real estate either. So that's just when the learning really begins, and then you need to understand how it all works.
Continuous education and learning is definitely needed in this
Yeah.
industry. So let's say you were talking to your younger self, or just a loan officer who's just starting out. What advice or tips would you give to him?
Oh, that's interesting. Take as much education as you can. If you can't afford it, you need it more than when you can afford it, and that's hiring a coach specializing in mortgages. My business changed a year and a couple of months ago. I had a business partner, and after 6 years, we split ways. And I decided, even though I've been in the industry forever and I know what to do, I decided I need to have somebody take a look at my business from a 20,000-foot view and analyze it, and what do I need to do? And so I brought on some people. I had some people that were in my branch that I rearranged. We gave them disc profile tests that were designed for the mortgage industry, and rearrange them and determine what their strengths and weaknesses are, so I can put them in the right place, and I know how to manage them. And that was a big deal. Coaching is a big deal. Most people, when they start out, they can't afford it, and hopefully your mentor or your manager can act as a substitute for that. And that's what I would recommend.
Definitely. I'm so glad you brought up coaches. The best athletes in the world have a coach. I have a coach. You said you have a coach. It gives you someone who gives you a proven way how to succeed. Just looking at it from your business from a different perspective. Definitely find a coach who's doing what you want to accomplish, or who has done what you want to accomplish.
Exactly.
So in recent years, technology has really made an impact in the industry. You've seen it all the way through. It's revolutionized it. So
Yeah.
how has this affected you and your business?
Well, it's changed it dramatically.
Absolutely.
So you can do a lot more numbers, and you can market differently. Certainly, there's a trend going back to snail mail because nobody's using it, and we're doing some of that, handwriting notes and the like. But certainly, I've done Facebook advertising, created funnels, follow-up campaigns by merged text, voice drops, merged emails. We've done all of that, and after I was buying leads for a while, it got to be so expensive that I went back to traditional business, and then I decided 2 years ago I was going to jump in with both feet into the Facebook side of business. There's so many people on social media, and so we do Facebook advertising right now with a change of the Facebook guides on who you can target. I'm primarily doing targeted lists, either past clients, realtors I've done business with, or I've gone to several of my realtor partners and offered to market to their clients for them, with the anticipation that I'm going to get the mortgage side of it.
Smart.
And I have a person that works with me, and her only job is to dial the phone all day long, set my appointments, manage my calendar, and call leads and past clients. And so I offer her services to realtor agents that I'm working with, and it's nothing that they couldn't do, but are they doing it? They're not. And so we'll take over an agent's database, even if it's a couple hundred people, and we'll turn a transaction or three out of that database on a monthly basis for them that they may not have gotten because if you're not in their face or in their feed continuously, you're not anywhere. And so we do things like that we do voice drops all the time to clients and merge texts, and I do a lot of video. I use BombBomb for that, and I send out videos to realtors on a weekly basis. And kind of interesting story. A video that I send out every Monday is a video about what news items this week could affect interest rates. I'm not talking about rates. I'm talking about news items that could affect rates. I was at a booth, I don't know how long it was, maybe a year and a half ago, at a local realtor convention. And I sent this out to like 800 agents. And I had so many people come up to me when I was at the booth, thanking me for sending that out, and company owners even saying, geez, I really enjoy that. Make sure you keep doing that. And why does it benefit? It's not getting me a transaction necessarily, but I had an agent, a well-known agent in my marketplace, call me last summer and said, I've got an offer from your buyer XYZ on my 123 Oak Street. Why should we accept that offer? And of course, I touted the strength of the buyer and my track record in closing transactions. And he said, you know, I don't know these other loan officers, but I know you from your video. Even though your offer isn't the highest, your client's offer isn't the highest, I'm going to have my seller accept your buyer's offer. And it went through. So, you know, just have to be out there and be in the marketplace and people and known in your marketplace. And there's a lot of side benefits to that, like that particular transaction, where he's already made 4 or 5 offers and didn't get them, and finally got that one because of that.
Building authority with those videos, and you really impressed me, because normally someone who's been in the industry as long as you, they kind of let it all these new strategies, their ego gets in the way, and they don't want to adapt to what's going on now. So it sounds like you're doing a really good job with modern strategies, gaining new business, maintaining relationships, organizing with the new strategies.
I try to stay. You say you want to stay ahead of the curve. It's pretty hard. But certainly I want to be at the cusp of the curve.
Sure.
And I do embrace new technologies and new ways. I'm constantly looking for new ideas on things to do. I'm not stuck in how we did it back in 1993 or 1999 or whatever. I mean, that was how we did things back then were important for how we did things then. My experience will allow me to incorporate what I learned from using those technologies and applying my experience to current technologies. Not that I'm going to stay with the old technologies. That's how I see it. Yeah.
So where do you see all this going in the future?
Seeing what going in the future?
All this technology and social media, especially in the mortgage industry specifically.
Well, I think we'll be more virtual than we are today.
Mm-hmm.
Realtors are much more virtual today, and I have a hard time embracing that. Only because it's very tough to recruit people if you are virtual. Even if they don't want to come to the office, they want to know there's an office there, kind of thing. I'm sure whether it's Facebook or whether it's LinkedIn, which is a lot of things that I'm doing on LinkedIn right now, using bots and the like, and connecting with people and promoting programs and the like. Right now I'm doing a bot on LinkedIn that reaches out to heroes and connects with them, and then talks about a heroes program that we have, a discount program for police, fire, and veterans, and the like, educators, government workers. And so I'm using that technology there, and where it goes from here, I don't know, but I'm certainly going to I certainly keep my ear to the ground, and if there's new technology coming out, I'm sure I'm going to be using it.
That's a smart way to put it. Always hungry to expand and adapt and overcome. So let's go to the buyer side now. What do you see as the biggest misconception or fear that your clients have before working with you?
Whether they could be approved, and where they come from makes a big difference if I have to sell myself or if I don't. I Because I've been doing this so long, I have a sense of confidence about myself, and I think they sense that compared to when I look back at when I was newer in the industry. You're hesitant, and I need that transaction to happen. And they can see that in your eyes. And whether they're virtual or not, they can feel it in your voice, or however you want to say it. So I think that if they're coming from if they're not being recommended to me, well, then you've got to convince them, and we do that with technology, and send out reminders of appointments so they show up, and all of that. And you have a certain percentage of them, depending on the time of year, that may be credit challenged more so than others. But my biggest hurdle right now is something that I only have a limited amount of, and how do I use it effectively? That's time. And so that's what I focus on, and what kind of from the client's point of view, how does something appear? Because their perception of reality is their reality. And so, did we contact them enough? Did we contact them too much? Do some people prefer to be contacted by text, others by email, others through an app that we installed on their phone? And we kind of tailor all of that to the individual client.
Awesome. So and moving on also, what do you think is the number one most asked question that you receive from first-time buyers?
What's the rate?
That's what everyone answers that question.
Well, and people are trained, because a lot of people think that if they have no experience, buying a mortgage is kind of like buying a number 2 pencil. They're all the same. Until you go through the process, you realize it's quite different. And while the rate could be important, it's not the most important thing. Every lender's money comes from the same place. Yeah, one may have a slightly different margin, but we're all going to be in the same range in interest rates and in costs. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between direct lenders and correspondents and brokers, without a doubt. I've been in all 3 of those places. I personally prefer direct lending, but I just find that I have a lot more control, and with that control, provides a happier experience for the client.
Definitely. Well, David, I really want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I had a great time talking with you. I really appreciate your time. And thank you to all the viewers for watching, and we will see you again next episode.
Thanks.